All right, calling to order this meeting of the Sacramento Metropolitan Cable Television Commission, which is cablecast live on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on the Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T UVerse cable systems. This meeting is closed captioned and is webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv and will replay on Saturday, June 4th at 2 p.m. on Metro Cable 14. So set your TiVo. Members of the audience wishing to address the board should fill out a speaker identification form located at the podium and hand it to the clerk. And with that, Karen, would you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Walter?
Here.
Carr?
Here.
Dittrich?
Here.
Polo? Here. Gonzalez?
Here.
Hernandez?
Here.
Morin? Natoli? Howard Schmidt?
Here.
Nava?
Lisa.
Lisa?
Clearly I'm here. I was here.
And ex officio Skoglin? Skoglin, I'm sorry, apologize. And we have a quorum, sir.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Polo, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
You mean Mrs. Polo?
Commissioner.
Oh, I think you said Mr. Polo. I pledge the allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No, we can check the record. I don't think I made that mistake. But do want to recognize two new members of the commission. First, our new ex officio member, Commissioner Dan Skoglund, council member on the Rancho Cordova City Council.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Hansen's alternate, Consuelo Hernandez, is chief of staff at the Sacramento City Council. So with that, Karen, would you call the first item, please?
Item number 1 is conference with legal counsel on existing litigation.
And with that, we will adjourn to closed session.
Right, this should not take very long, and
Okay.
I thought we'd go in the back room over there.
Okay. Now reconvene out of our closed session. And Harriet, is there anything we need to report?
There's no reportable action.
Great. And with that, then, Karen, would you call the next item, please?
Item number 2 is the fiscal year 2016-17 general fund and PEG fee fund proposed budgets.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Bob Davison, your executive director, and I'll be presenting the 2016-17 proposed budgets for two funds, the Commission's general fund and the Commission's public education and government fee fund. With that, I do have a PowerPoint presentation, so I'd like to ask staff to put the PowerPoint up. Okay, the first slide basically shows the 16-17 general fund budget. The budget shows total expenditures of just over $14.5 million, and by the pie chart you can see that the bulk of the budget money passes through the commission and ends up as revenue distributions, which is general fund revenue to the member agencies, and that's about $11.4 million. With that, we're also proposing $150,000 into reserves, salaries and benefits of just over $953,000, services and supplies of $786,000, and funding for the channel licensees for their operations of just under $1.2 million. And with that, I'll go through some of the highlights of this budget. So first I want to talk about the commission administration. This is the administration staff that is run by Karen Liu. Basically, this staff administers issues related to state-issued franchises. As you know, there are no local franchises anymore, but there's still a lot of issues that come up related to the franchisees within our communities, and the Cable Commission has a hand in assisting with those issues. We also assist customers in resolving cable complaints. We provide significant support for the operations of the 6 other PEG channels other than Channel 14, which the Commission runs itself. We collect and distribute the franchise fees and also collect PEG fees and fund PEG projects for the 7 member agencies, the 4 channel licensees, and Metro 14 itself. The administration staff, we have a part-time executive director, me. I'm not on salary with the commission. I'm a county employee, so by contract I work for the commission, and I'm funded by paying the County of Sacramento. We have 3 full-time administrative positions in ASO 3, Karen, an ASO 1, which is unfilled right now, but I hope that we'll be getting that filled very soon, and also a senior office assistant. This budget includes a recommended COLA and salary adjustments, and by commission policy, these positions, in fact, all positions, including the Metro Cable positions that I'm going to talk about later, are tied to ASO positions at the county. So our ASO 3 is tied to the county ASO 3 position, which is getting a 4% COLA this year. And our senior office assistant, and actually our Metro Cable positions as well, are tied to the ASO 1 position, which position will be getting a 5%. I say COLA, it's actually a salary adjustment because there's some other components in there. But that's the salary adjustment that those positions will be getting this year. Other highlights of the administration budget, accounting services, which is the County of Sacramento does our accounting. All the transactions that we approve go through the county accounting, and also our P card and our P card audits as well. And so that covers that amount. The next is money well spent for our very good legal counsel, and we're proposing that to be $200,000. We are anticipating some litigation, and so this is sized to also help us through that if that should come up. Other professional services of $200,000, that includes the money for my time. It also includes the money for the audits that will be performed, both the commission audit as well as the auditors that will be auditing cable companies. And then at the last meeting, we discussed a reserve policy, and your board approved a reserve policy, and the target was $1.5 million in the reserve in about 4 to 5 years. The current reserve balance is $898,000, just over that. That includes the offset of the Comcast security deposit that has been the subject of some recent meetings. So I just wanted to let you know that that reserve balance also includes that $269,000 that was offset from the Comcast security deposit. With that, the target for this reserve is $1.5 million in 4 to 5 years, so the $150,000 contribution to the reserves is consistent with that policy. And then finally, several years ago, the commission approved participating in the CalPERS reserve that funds other than retirement post-employment benefits, and the amount in the budget proposed for that this year, based on working with our actuary, is $85,000. The next component, one I've been excited about since 2006 when we implemented closed captioning. We are proposing about $110,000 in the budget to fund closed captioning. Just so you know, 316 meetings that were produced by Metro Cable were captioned, and that equated to 654 hours of captioning. And staff is also recommending that Caption Colorado's agreement be extended for another year through June of 2017. Next, I want to talk about, we talked about administration. I want to talk about Metro Cable staff. That's the staff that's filming this meeting right now and making sure that it actually gets on our television and internet and such. They provide the gavel-to-gavel coverage of the meetings that are held by the member agencies and the other meetings that occur in this board chambers as well as in other locations. I do want to point out that in 2015, they they produced over 348 meetings at 12 different locations, and all of those meetings end up on Metro Cable. Some live, some obviously not all of them are live, and then most of these meetings are rerun at least a couple of times after that. I also want to point out that other items do come up, and our Metro Cable staff was involved in showing the League of Women Voters forums, which were recently held in these chambers, and several local races of interest to the Sacramento area. The debates were held in this room, and Metro Cable did a great job working with the league and getting those on. So we appreciate our staff for basically putting the extra effort there. One other thing I want to point out is Tyler Kinney, who's our program coordinator. He's been working to try to spruce up our bulletin boards. I know sometimes you look at the bulletin boards that run in Metro Cable, and I think we've talked, maybe at this board, but certainly internally, about, you know, making those a little more interesting. And a couple things that we're doing is we're running public service announcements on the bulletin boards. Tyler's been doing these throwback videos where he's taking interesting moments that have happened at either this commission or at other boards and council meetings over the past, and resurrecting some interesting clips and running those as throwback videos, as well as we're putting more weather and other information. So we're continually trying to improve the downtime that happens on Metro Cable, and that's just some of the efforts that is happening there. With that, Metro Cable staff includes 4 full-time positions: our production director, Kristen Riggs, our programming coordinator, our technical coordinator, and our technical assistant, which we have a new technical assistant that we will be introducing to you later. Also, the commission funds, it includes the part-time production assistants that film all the meetings, and many of the different member agencies and boards and commissions see those staff in the control rooms and working on the cameras and doing other work related to getting all of our meetings on the Channel 14. And with that, as I said before, the recommended salary adjustments for these positions is the 5%, and that is tied to the AS01 position at the county. Component 4 is community programming. You're well aware of Channel 14 and the other 6 public education government channels that the commission has. And 6 of those channels are run by other organizations, so they're channel licensees with agreements with the commission. The commission on an annual basis provides funding and support for Access Sacramento, KVIE, SECC, and Capital Public Radio, which obviously is not a licensee of the channel, but also has a longtime partner with the commission, and we've had a long history of funding support for Capital Public Radio as well. And then Sac Faith TV, that does run one of the commission's channels, but because of issues between church and state legal issues, we provide support in the channel, but not funding support for Sac Faith TV. Based on the policy that was approved at the last meeting, and then we were asked to bring back a written policy at this meeting, which we have done, and it's part of the budget package today, is we are recommending the same COLA for the base operations for the channel licensees, and tying that to the same salary adjustment that is being recommended for staff. Also in the general fund budget, we are including a $7,000 grant for Capital Public Radio for equipment. And we just feel that it's a better fit for the general fund rather than the PEG fee, just because they're not an actual channel. So we propose to fund that in the general fund. And this spreadsheet basically shows the funding support in the budget for the different organizations. Access Sacramento, a total of $566,000, which includes their operation base, their continued support for their hometown TV, and also for their Game of the Week programming. Then Capital Public Radio, the $27,600, which is the increase of their base, as well as the one-time equipment that I just mentioned. And then KVIE for a total of $224,000 for their operations base. And then the Sacramento Education Cable Consortium, we are proposing their operations base and a BestNet base, and that increases their total to about $355,000. With that, we come to the blue area of the first graphic, and it's the revenue distribution to the member agencies. So in the last year's budget, we had budgeted the revenue distribution for 15-16 would be about $11.3 million. And we received about $732,000 more than that, and as past practice, and I believe policy is that we take the difference between what we received and what we budgeted, and we add it to the revenue distribution that goes to the member agencies in June of every year. So this June, there will be a little bit more money for everybody to the tune of $732,000, and the total revenue distribution that will come real soon is going to just over $12 million. And then proposed in the budget for 2016-17 is a budgeted revenue distribution to all the member agencies of $11.4 million. That is more than was budgeted last year, and certainly less than the actual received this year. I still think it's a good idea to budget conservatively. We are entering eras where things like over-the-top TV, competition from internet programming, and also, as I told you at the last meeting, AT&T is going away from their cable TV, using their copper fiber system in the roadways to a DirecTV format, which could translate to less franchise fees, at least from AT&T customers. So with that, I think this is a prudent recommendation. And of course, at the end of the year in June, just like we're doing today, the hope is that we budgeted conservatively, and there's a little bit more for everybody at the end of the fiscal year. And I showed this slide last year as well. Interestingly enough, it shows a pretty steady trend of increased franchise fees over the years. And, and that is in the face of internet competition and other things. I think some of this has to do with AT&T being a new player and bringing in their business, as well as while there may be increased competition, the services being offered by the current providers become more unique. There's different types of services, and certainly cost increased in the products that they are providing. So whereas I think we do need to be wary about one day the trend of this turning, it is interesting to see this trend that is happening with franchise fees over time. And this is just a chart that shows the same thing that was in the past slide, but it shows the actual numbers and the percent difference from year to year for the franchise fees that have been received by the commission. The average is probably in the range of between 4 and 5.5%. That brings us to the, so that's the general fund budget, and that brings us to the, what we call 94B, the Public Education Government Channel Fee Fund. And this fund started in about 2009 or so when the commission, along with the member agencies, because we had to go to all the member agencies, approved the 1% public education and government fee that was allowed by DIVCA. And we were one of the entities that didn't have a PEG fee before the state franchising was approved. But after state franchising was approved, it was something that was considered and implemented in 2009. With that, we get just over $2.3 million in new revenue into this PEG fee fund every year. We get a lot of requests. We get requests from all 7 member agencies. We get requests from our licensees that operate the PEG channels, and also our own Metro Cable Channel 14. We get requests there as well. So this is very similar to the graphic where we showed the general fund. The PEG fund shows total expenditures of $3.94 million. That's more than the $2.3 million in revenue, and that's because there are rollover funds that come from the year before and some other miscellaneous revenue. Interest isn't too great. So, and the reason that there's rollover funds, actually, this PEG fee fund has been mostly fully subscribed for the past several years. But what happens is many of the agencies aren't finished with their projects in a certain fiscal year. So we ask that when they present their budget for the next year, that they identify what hasn't been finished but is still a project that's going to be happening, so that we don't forget about their project, not budget for it, have it roll over, and then, thereby they have a facility constructed without any funding. Karen, there's a lot of coordination because there's a lot of entities involved, and Karen and her staff do a good job. The PEG fee certainly has brought a great deal of administration. That all has to happen within a short time frame from today, where we're doing this budget meeting, to several months ago when we contacted the different agencies about these requests. So anyway, with that, and I'm not going to go through these individually because in general, what's being asked for is a lot of equipment. It's important equipment that allows the member agencies and the channel licensees to continue to provide the cable-related, PEG-related items that they do in this era of technology, whereas, we did not see equipment costs of this magnitude, in the 80s and the 90s, but basically almost at the same time that the PEG fee came along, HD started becoming an issue, even though our channels are not shown HD because they're on the lowest tier of the cable providers I think by DIVCA law. There's still been significant improvement in using the newer equipment and the equipment that is available today. So with that, the budget is fully subscribed for this year. I do want to point out, I appreciate Gary Martin at Access Sacramento and David Lowe at KVIE for working with me, because we were a little bit over the amount of money that we had, and I worked with them to scale back a little bit so that we could present a budget that made everybody happy, did a lot of good things, but also where everything fit. So with that, we're proposing expenditures of $3.9 million. $146,000 for channel licensees facilities base, and these are the ongoing amounts that the channel licensees get every year. And many years ago, we moved some of their operations based to their facilities based, thereby increasing franchise fees. Some of that has moved back, but some of it has stayed here in the PEG fee budget. Metro Cable is requesting $47,000 in equipment for Metro Cable itself. We do have a little bit of a contingency. It's not a big contingency, but mostly we can manage this by cash flow, and we have never had a problem. And there seems to be a tendency for a lot of the cost of the PEG cost to come in towards the end of the year. So. Also, we have about $907,000 in member agency request, and that's for going into board chambers, control rooms, council chambers, and the like. We also have the channel licensees requesting one-time equipment of about $1.3 million. And we also are proposing a BestNet Phase 3 Year 6. There's $600,000 of new money, and the rest of that is rollover money for BestNet. And I do want to point out that there is an item on today's agenda that's related to this. So as your commission knows, we've provided a lot of funding support for BestNet. BestNet has been a tremendous success. I'm taking some of out of the future item, but it's probably important to explain it now as well as part of the budget. So phase 3 of BestNet, what's called the elementary school phase, and this commission approved $600,000 a year for 5 years, basically $3 million to complete the elementary schools within the Sacramento area. With that, a good portion of that money has been spent. But there are additional schools that have been identified, and SECC, Cable Commission, and Comcast have talked about a strategy to basically finish out BestNet. But with that is a strategy to identify a certain amount of sites and finish those sites. And so we're talking about a 2-year agreement, of which we would hope to bring back at the next Cable Commission meeting. But with that, SECC is requesting that there be $600,000 allocated in this budget to support that effort. And so with that, we are recommending the $600,000 in this budget. And we will be coming back at the next meeting with, hopefully with an agreement that will outline all the terms of that. I probably said too much about that item. It's certainly related to the budget, but it's also related to a later item. So With that, I'm not going to go through the individual requests from the channel licensees. I know some of you have reviewed them. I could point out a few things. The request from Access Sacramento is to improve their IT network, also equipment for their various labs and production facilities. One item that I like is because the commission funded the truck that Access Sacramento has just recently unveiled at its budget meeting last year. I wasn't able to go to that, but I heard that the truck looks great, and they're funding a security fence and I think some other security-related items to that this year, and I think it's a pretty good idea to protect the investment. So that's part of their budget. KVIE, various production and other facilities, as well as improvements to their HVAC system. And then the Education Consortium, in addition to the BestNet 600,000 request, which I just talked about, also a $90,000 request to continue their tremendous success of putting SIVA labs, production labs, studios into local schools. I've seen those labs myself. They're awesome. There's one at my son's school, so they're quite amazing, and they actually are providing more labs by leveraging the commission money and getting money from the schools, and so they've increased the number of labs that they've been able to do each and every year. And with that, I think that's the general presentation for both the PEG fee fund and the general fund. I'm certainly here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you. Oh, I guess I should go over the recommendations. So with this, we recommend that the board approve the fiscal year 16-17 general fund and PEG fee fund proposed budgets, including the resolutions that are attached, as well as all agreements, exhibits, and policies attached to the budget staff report. I want to thank Karen for the tremendous work that she does and help put together this budget. It's not an easy feat, and it's a lot of work that has to get done in a little bit of time, and she does a great job at that. And with that, I'll certainly attempt to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions? Bob, just one quick one. Do you have, by any chance, have what our actual distributions total were to the member agencies from the 14-15 fiscal year on hand?
Actually, there was a slide, I think, that we skipped, Bob, so.
I saw that has the current.
No, there was a.
There we go.
Yeah. No, one before that, I think. Breaks down the, there it is. Are you referring to that?
Okay, so
Have the 14,
14-15 you're talking about?
Yeah.
14, 15.
So I don't have 14-15,
Okay.
but I can get it to you.
Okay. What was the slide that had the chart with the increasing line on it? That was total franchise. That was total revenue, though.
Okay, so you want
Total revenue, not distributions. That's total revenue inclusive of operating costs and other expenses, right?
It's total general fund revenue?
I don't really need it. It's been growing. It's been on a pretty linear growth curve for the last decade.
Are you talking about that one?
That one.
Okay.
Okay. That's good. Thank you. Well, without any other questions from the commission, I do have two requests to speak. First is Arla Gibson.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Arla Gibson with Capital Public Radio. I just wanted, first of all, to say thank you to the Commissioners and to the staff for the great work that you do and for the support that you've offered Capital Public Radio since 1989. With that, I have a short video that describes what you helped support last year in addition to our general operations. And essentially, it's a similar request for this year's budget as well. So thank you so much, and I urge your support. If we can run the video.
Since first signing on in 1979, Capital Public Radio has gone through serious growth. Okay, so now it's no surprise that in 2016, the way broadcast has evolved in a big way. And here's how the Sacramento Metropolitan Cable Television Commission has helped substantially in that progress just over the last year. So this is the studio that we call Production A. Yeah, I know, super inspired, right? Well, Prod A is a pretty typical example of every studio here at Capitol Public Radio in that it has a mass of cabling necessary to record, edit, and send the audio that we produce every day. See that? That's over 50 cables. Each one contains 8 wires apiece. So right there, you were looking at over 400 individual wires. You multiply that by 6 studios, we're well over 2,400 wires just for the daily operations of Capitol Public Radio. And here's where all those wires lead. A room about 20 feet away that serves as the nerve center for our broadcast operation over 7 stations throughout Northern California. Thinking back a little bit, remember those 50 cables per studio? With the grant money the Sacramento Metropolitan Cable Television Commission has provided, Cap Radio has purchased equipment to take all 2,400 of those wires and replace them with one Cat 5 cable per studio. It's pretty nuts, right? With this equipment, Capitol Public Radio is updating some of the most crucial parts of our broadcast operation. It makes us more nimble in the everyday production of news, music, and arts programming that we serve to local, national, and international communities. On behalf of Cap Radio News and Music, I really want to say thanks to the Sacramento Metropolitan Cable Television Commission and urge your continued support in 2016 and the years to come.
Great. And next speaker is Gary Martin. There we go.
Good evening, good afternoon. Gary Martin from Access Sacramento. Most of you at the dais have seen this document, but just to quickly reiterate, what Access Sacramento is asking for is a very small increase on the general fund total. In the past, you have supported similar requests. As you look at the amount of the COLA that has been offered to us this year, between the general fund and the PEG, it amounts to approximately $30,000. On the franchise fee side, it's almost $27,000, and that goes primarily to fund the salaries that we operate under. We have 5 full-time employees and 4 additional part-time permanent employees. Most of you have kind of heard this story already, but the request here would be to support, in addition to the raw 5% of what goes into the salaries into the wallet, to also support a minimum wage increase that's coming at us on the January 1st of 2017, as well as the backside taxes of state disability, workers' comp, those elements of what it takes to put 5% into the wallets of the employees. In talking with Bob, he felt that this was a commission decision as opposed to just kind of coming off his desk, and so I come to you with this particular request. I know that we had this discussion last year, and Commissioner Moran commented on not wanting to have Access Sacramento piecemeal the budget, and that it seems unfair for one franchisee to somehow be treated differently than the others. Here's my explanation of that. We operate on a very lean budget. Overall, after personnel, we operate the entire business on about $110,000. And so when the backside taxes are not, or if the backside taxes were not covered as part of the offer, it means that we would have to either raise the $15,000 necessary in other earned income ways, and against $110,000 in earned income, that's about a 15% boost in 1 year. And being perfectly honest, even with Ron Cooper's days on the commission, representing Access Sacramento, we have never been able to do those types of fundraising activities. So it is our hope that you would increase the general fund allocation to the original request that's listed on the document I've provided. That amounts to an additional approximately $15,000 and would stabilize our budget in such a way that we would not ultimately cut the COLA for our employees, which would be the only option we would have. 39%, 39 cents on the dollar for taxes, benefits associated with the dollars that go in on the general fund. So that would be the request, and I would hope that you would support or move for some type of adjustment to the COLA payments, ultimately an additional $15,000 to provide some stability to what it is that we need to do. And I'm free to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Gary right now?
Just good. So, Bob, you reviewed this. Was this part of the packet that came in originally then?
Yes.
Okay. And I think Gary's explained it, certainly he's covered it with some of us in briefings. Does this in any way then affect any other COLA requests, or would it have any other offsetting effect, I guess, beyond access if we were to do this? Your staff is getting a COLA already.
So the staff is getting a COLA, and that's tied to county positions.
Right.
And so I've simply, based on commission policy now, have recommended the same COLA for the channel licensees.
That's recommended. That's already built into the base.
It's built into the budget. Yeah. So so Access Sacramento requests for the 5% COLA, and then the cost of minimum wage. The COLA actually exactly matches what we've recommended in the budget, but the cost of minimum wage, the $15,500 amount, is not in the recommendation right now.
Okay, and so to Gary's point, either they have to fundraise it or eat it, one way or the other, I guess, so to speak.
Sure.
That's not your words, that's my words, but I mean that's what happens.
I think what Gary's saying is that if they either have to fundraise it or they lower the COLA paid to the employees by the amount necessary to cover the,
yeah, that's how to eat it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would just say, Mr. Chair, that it doesn't seem unreasonable. Again, we have again, we don't know how long that arc will continue to be an upward to take. It certainly goes back to our member jurisdictions for other, general fund support for programs and services to our common constituencies, as well as our local constituencies. And I would say that this is not unreasonable. Again, access, it's part of the television programming and so forth. I don't see it as being piecemeal. And again, it's a reflection, obviously, of upward wages and, I guess some of the costs that may or may not be assumed, whether you're in the government or in the private sector. And I think while we have it, I know it becomes a part of it becomes a part of the base. I did talk with Gary about this yesterday, so recognizing that if we do this, it's not just a one-time thing, it gets plugged in, but if we don't have it in some years, then, and we've had that discussion here previously, but again, I would be inclined to support this. I don't know how others feel. So.
Commissioner Detrick.
Yeah, Bob, when Gary approached you with this, did you also analyze the other licensees as far as if we were to treat everybody equally, what that total dollar amount would be?
I did not. If I was to, let's see.
Because I would assume that the other licensees run into the same problem with minimum wage and benefits on the backside.
If you recall, last year a similar discussion came up, and I believe the combined request, or what was approved by the board, I don't remember the request, but I think we had a lower COLA recommended, and but was finally approved by the board was 7%, and I believe by motion by Mr. Moran, the board approved a 7% across the board adjustment that would apply to all the licensees. So that happened last year. This year's request, it's about $15,500. Last year's funding amount was $540,000 for Access Sacramento. It's about a 2.87% that would be beyond the 5% that has been recommended and also requested. If you applied that $15,000 to the others, which in total about Under $600,000, basically, you would approximately double the $15,500 request if applied to all the licensees. So basically, we'd be talking in the range of $30,000. I'm an engineer, but that's the best math that I can do off the top of my head.
So what ballpark estimate would that be for a percentage increase?
The ballpark estimate for a percentage increase would be 7.87% if you approve the Access Sacramento request.
7.8?
7.87?
7.9.
7.9, say, these are certainly approximate numbers, so I definitely probably shouldn't be taking it to 2 decimal places.
And how does that the COLA compare to the CPI?
The COLA is higher than the CPI this year because the COLA, the County of Sacramento employees didn't get increases, nor did channel licensees get increases during the downturn. And I believe that 5% salary adjustment includes some past makeup. I don't know the full details. Those are based upon the labor relations between the county and the employee organizations and such. But being a county employee myself, I think I do understand that there's a COLA CPI component, and then there's some other amounts in there as well. So off the top of my head, I don't know what the CPI was this year. I think it was somewhere between 2% and 3%, but I'm not positive about that.
You're talking about approximately 30,000 is what you'd estimate if everybody was treated equally.
Correct. 30,000 above the 5%, which is already built into the budget.
Right. 30,000 additional.
Right.
Well, we're also projecting total revenues in the 2016 fiscal year, 2016-17 fiscal year to be $1,006,000 below the actual revenue for FY15-16. Total revenue.
Correct.
Okay. Commissioner Polo? Commissioner.
I think Access Sacramento is very important. They do great work, provide a pretty integral role to the community. I don't think that you can treat necessarily every situation the same. They are different. I know Access Sacramento operates on a very lean, small budget versus, KQED and Capital Public Radio that has a larger budget, and in order to deal with the minimum wage increases and then also add in the benefits issue and Social Security and everything on top of that, you want to keep the staff. And to keep the staff, you've got to make some harder decisions. And I do think the $15,000 is a reasonable ask. So those are my comments. But I would actually like to make a motion to approve the ask.
I still have Commissioner Moore waiting to
Yeah, I kind of initiated some of this stuff at our meeting a year ago, and part of my thought process was, one, as you recall, the equitability, and so there was this 7%, and we figured, listen, in the spirit of equitability, let's spread that evenly. And so I appreciate that discussion where if there's some rationale for this from one of these groups, then the same rationale could apply to all. But something that was important to me as far as going forward, and this board kind of saw that as a positive direction, was to make it easier to do these budget things so that there would be this COLA. For those of us who've been on the board for a long time, and there were many years where there wasn't a COLA. And I think, part of the process in my head wasn't that this COLA immediately translates to that same salary increase back to the employees of these groups, but that's your budget bump that gets worked through the budget process that Bob and Karen work through. So, although the 15, or if let's say it's $30,000 across all the agencies, again, for the sake of uniformity, that wasn't, my intention. My intention was to prevent this sort of stuff, was that, hey, this is what you get. You're getting a nice budget increase, 5%. I know the employees in the city of Folsom are not getting 5% pay raises, but their expenses, I understand, certainly have gone up by more than that when you add in, pensions and all those sorts of things. So to kind of keep chasing all these things that are out of our control, we just work through. We talk about minimum wage, that's going to get hit, every year in perpetuity, really, the way that new law is set up. So my preference is that through the budget process, we can continue to support the great work that these groups do. But, you know, with these uniform, and again, I think COLA is the wrong word, but just budget increases, it might be a budget decrease some year. Where, you know, if things get tight, if these things start to shrink the way, you know, Bob just explained, where, you know, we could see revenues start to shrink. You know, that doesn't mean that your agencies and your groups aren't going to continue to have rising costs. So you know, where does this process stop? So you know, again, I don't want to discount the great work these folks do. I advocated for, you know, these bumps. I think the 5% is a great, generous number, but I you know, I just am uncomfortable with the, you know, with the add-ons, and that's what I wanted to try and prevent last year, and I wasn't good at that. So, but anyway, I am not interested in supporting this. I know it's a small increase, but I'm just after some uniformity and kind of the expectations of the budget process that we set in place last year, which is, yeah, let's help these agencies or these groups with some budget increases, but it's almost like whatever number we put out there, there's going to be something else that comes along, and I appreciate it. I don't blame anybody for asking for more funding. But anyway, those are my feelings, and I am not inclined to support the, you know, the increase, the worthy but increase, but not.
All right, Commissioner Nava.
Thank you. I agree with all of the comments today, including the ones that were just made. I think, and I have a question. Last year, I think the recommended budget was 4%, and then we did bump it to 7%. Does that sound right?
It sounds right. I don't, if anybody can confirm the 4, I know that the final number was 7, and I know there was the increase.
Okay.
Where we started from, I think it probably was about 4.
Yeah, and then where did we take that from? Do you remember, or? I can't remember if we talked about it.
You know, I don't remember specifically.
I can help with that, because I believe there was this mix of requests that you know, Bob had listened to from these groups, and there was, and I can't remember which one actually had the 7% as part of the proposed budget. And then we got into this discussion as a board as far as this uniformity, and I think we just figured the easiest way to manage that at this point was to, you know, ask the board basically to approve 7% across the board, because that way it wasn't going to break anybody's assumptions at that point. So I think that's how that got generated.
So, and I agree with the equity. I'm sorry, Bob.
Well, I was going to say also, we actually increased the revenue expectation at the same meeting. So, in other words, that hasn't come up yet, but it may have been funded out of there. It certainly could have come from revenue distributions or contingency as well.
Okay. As I was going to say, I agree with the equity issue. I would feel more comfortable doing the increase across the board if that's where the board chose to go. And it's not the amount of money that gives me a little bit of heartburn. It's more of piecemealing the taxes versus the salary. I just feel like that's a strange way to do it, that most people get their 5% and everything's built into it. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's the rationale or the reasoning that's coming with it that I have a little bit of concern over. These are just my thoughts. I'm curious to hear if there are others.
Well, I just tie onto that. I think coming from the perspective of working with the Board of Supervisors, when the bargaining units negotiated a cost of living adjustment, the agency budgets for the cost of living adjustment plus the tax increases and everything else that will come along with that. So 5% to the employee, then from a budget standpoint, means closer to 8% to the agency. So that's just, I think it's something that to keep in mind when we're talking, or keep that perspective in mind, that we're not really dealing with the employee's perspective on this one. We're dealing with what are we allocating for a percentage increase. And at the same time, you know, one of the things that I keep wondering, Gary, is especially within, and I think we kind of touched on this in our meeting. Was that Friday last? That was Friday.
Yes.
Don't go to law school at night if you want to remember what day it is. With the new truck, are there opportunities to maybe make enough revenue to cover these small bits here and there going forward?
We believe that there may be some opportunity with high definition to increase some underwriting and some support for the game of the week kinds of things that we do. particularly now that we're going to have this kind of showpiece to help with the communication process of why people would want to jump on board. We don't know and haven't realized that income at this point. It would be our hope to move down that path because we need to move more in the area of earned income. But there's no guarantee of that, certainly.
Yeah.
One of the thoughts is whether or not, and it was going to be a question later on for Bob and Harriet, on to what extent we can broker the truck in a nonprofit world for creation of programming as essentially a for-fee based opportunity. On the educational side, when I was at the college, we were never allowed to compete, so to speak, with people commercially who do this type of work. The interesting thing now as a nonprofit working with other nonprofits, the question that needs to follow is, are we able to compete in a world where there isn't that much competition? To have an HD truck that can do this type of work maybe is not a competitive environment because not that many people do this type of work for nonprofits. So it would be a question on how to increase revenues, but it is not. It is an unresolved issue, and I would hate to promise anything without having talked to staff.
No, I think the only commitment that I'd be looking for is a commitment to work with staff, and then if there's a way to do it, then to pursue that and come back by at next budget, hopefully with some revenue in hand and some projections for continued outside revenue growth.
And even to the extent that we would potentially work with other grantees, I know KVIE already does television, of course, but the idea that they may not do remote production and would like an opportunity to do something where, again, there's kind of an exchange of services and dollars that maybe they would normally give to somebody else could possibly flow to us. So that, within the scope of the franchisee world, seems like a reasonable partnership.
Okay. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you. In consideration to across the board COLAs for the different licensees and what Access Sacramento is asking for, I understand the idea to choose a number and stick with it or to provide some kind of equity, but I think what would be helpful here and possibly illuminating for the commissioners is an understanding about how much of this special acts really reflects Access Sacramento's situation of having perhaps more proportionate minimum wage employees than other licensees. I don't know that the other licensees are prepared to provide that data today, but maybe Gary, you could speak a little bit to how many of your workforce are at minimum wage and what percentage of your workforce will see an increase in their salaries come January?
For us, we have, as I mentioned before, 5 permanent full-time employees and 4 permanent part-time employees at 32 hours with benefits. So 9 employees with benefits, but only 5 of those are full-time. On top of that, we employ more than 20 part-time on-call people during football season, for example. That's 1 day a week at generally 8 or 9 hours. During other weeks when there are hometown TV events, we could be having crews of 10, 11 people that are out again for another full day of operation. But almost all of those now are operating at minimum wage. They had been in the $9 range. It jumped to 10 on January 1st. It will go to $10.50. These are on-call people who aspire to either work in the industry full-time. There are not a lot of full-time jobs in television locally that come available, but they gain experience. A lot of our people, for example, have crossed over and now work for Bob and Karen on the Metro 14 staff. They cross over and go work for the Cal Channel and a variety of other government types of entities where they can make a little more than we pay. But we're talking about roughly 24 or 25 people over a year who are operating about minimum wage now because of the existing increases of the minimum wage so far.
So unless you know the exact figure out of the 15,514, what do you anticipate the increase in minimum wage to consume of that?
Let me go into my thinking here. Second half of the year, 25 events. 25 events at approximately, I probably figured it at 9 hours. per event, per employee. So we'd have to do the math here. 25 times 10 hours times 8 employees times 50 cents on the dollar was the increase. $4,000 or $5,000. I'm doing the math off the top of my head. I'd have to get a calculator out. Isaac, I'm sorry, I don't know.
No, thank you.
Commissioner Polo.
To the point on the equity versus equality, with equality, everyone getting the same percent on the COLA that we were talking about. The equity part is really about those agencies that have the toughest challenge, which I really do think Access Sacramento has one of the tougher challenges. I also think that when we're talking about the 5% COLA across the board, the employees aren't actually seeing the full 5%. So maybe when we're talking about having a blanket proposal that has the same COLA increase for all agencies, no matter what, because I agree to the point that if we approve this here, then what's to say next year we'll have another special request and another special request. But I think that we should maybe consider with the proposed COLA across the board that we also include the costs associated with the COLAs for the future. Just putting that out there. But I think for purposes of this meeting and this discussion, I think we should approve this. I see it as a very nominal cost.
And the only thing that, I think are we going to, well, I guess I'm the chair, so I want to make sure we're looking at the bigger picture of the whole budget, because the one concern I have in the broader context, and it's a little more money than $15,000, is distribution to member agencies, which is my concern every year. And I'd like to see this year that, because we continue to see revenue to the agency, to the commission grow at a pretty steady linear rate every year. And we're always kind of being, and Bob, I appreciate conservative approaches to the budget, but I think, we continue to project our revenues and our agency distributions below where they were in actual receipts in the previous year. And so looking at the fact that we're over $1 million, we're projecting proposed revenue to be over $1 million less than actuals for the current fiscal year, and then distributions to member agencies being about $606,000 below the actual distributions in the current fiscal year. If we're going to do something with Gary's request, I'd also like to look at, I'd like to put our distribution to member agencies flat from the 15-16 fiscal year, which would be a bump in the budget of about $606,000, but no growth over the last fiscal year, and would still have our revenues estimated at about $400,000 below where they were in the 15-16 fiscal year. And that would bring each agency a pretty good additional chunk of money going into our fiscal year budget deliberations, which for the county are in 2 weeks.
Chair Walter?
Yes.
Can you just confirm that number? So what you're saying is the proposed fiscal year 16-17 proposed budget, the franchise fee proposed revenue, which is $13.75 million in the budget right now, you're proposing to increase that amount?
I am looking at, I'm looking at two numbers. So I'm looking at the total revenue. So I should be looking at the 13,762.
If I can direct you to Exhibit 1 of the budget.
Yep.
It's an attachment. That's okay.
Yeah.
So the revenue number that I think we're talking about is the second line under revenue, franchise fees.
Yep.
And the proposed budget is 13.75. You're correct to point out that it's less than the actuals of this year, which are 14.3 million.
Right, but it's not the same delta when you count in the fund balance carry forward, which is the number I was looking at the grand revenue total.
Correct. Okay.
So if we came in then with 16-17 franchise fees at actual, we'd be looking at about $583,000 in franchise fees.
Over what was over actuals? I mean,
if we were to increase the proposed budget franchise fees from the current proposed of $13,750,000 to the actual for 15-16.
Okay.
That'd be an increase of 585. Let me do math again.
$582,000 approximately.
Yeah, 582,000, okay. And then we could bump the franchise fee distribution by the 583,000. Right?
Yes, but if you were also talking about funding any
Right,
type of the
right, then
Access
that'd come out-
Sacramento
that'd net
request,
out of that.
it would be the delta of that.
Right, okay.
Correct.
And Sarah, you're looking at just the 15,000 and not being equitable across all
Right.
the groups?
And that was the second.
And you're a second for that.
But with the caveat that in the future, when we're talking about proposing COLAs across
Yeah.
the board, that we add in the stipulation that the 5%, for example, doesn't go completely to the employee. We have to consider the additional costs
Right.
of the COLAs.
Right. Okay. Well, I guess I would,
Do we have any other speakers for the licenses?
I don't have any other speakers from the licensees,
So
so.
maybe-
and Commissioner, I apologize, Commissioner Detrick, I didn't see your request come in.
Because I would just be curious, even by maybe a show and nod from the other licensees, if you have minimum wage employees as well. Yes?
I'd actually want to address it in a way.
You want to come up?
You know, I apologize, Chair, but I have a commitment that I'm already going to be drastically late for. So I had hoped this, you know, I could at least participate in this, but I don't want to. This is an important deliberation.
Yeah.
So without offending anybody, I need to depart and try and miss some traffic that I'm sure is building as we speak. So, but just again,
But at least there's not a Trump rally to really.
no, it's not.
whole region.
No, it's not, or a Feel the Burn rally either. So, but anyway, I appreciate participating in the deliberations, and again, you know, I think everybody's hitting good points here, and you know, we're going to come up with a good decision here. So.
Okay.
David Lowe with KVIE. While we don't have any minimum wage employees other than paid interns, it does affect us when the minimum wage increases, exempt employees must be paid at least double the minimum wage. So that's kind of where that would affect not only us, but really anyone else who has exempt employees.
Okay, so that's actually good to know, because that affects Gary's regular employees, I would assume, then.
If he has any exempt employees, it could increase that as well.
And possibly the same thing for Liz's group, too. And
Right, depending on how much they're paid, right.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Well, then, I don't know, Steve, were you done?
I know there was a motion on the
Yeah,
floor.
I was gonna
but
offer a
I was going to
substitute
do a substitute motion of doing, well, I know there were some budget adjustments that the chair mentioned that I could go along with, but I think we should be, based on what we've heard, do the 7.9 or 8% across the board for all the licensees, because it's, you know, there was some unintended consequences that people are affected by the minimum wage increase. And that's obvious to see, and it's very interesting to hear, if you got an exempt employee, that their salary has to be double the minimum, because I never even thought of that aspect of being an issue. So I really appreciate that extra insight to that. So that would be my motion.
I would second the substitute motion. I would just say that we share it while we've got it, and there may come a time when this goes a different direction, and this board will have to look at it differently. And so I would just say to all the entities who obviously track that as well, that that's something to keep in mind, because there may come a day, may come sooner than we would like, or may never come, but when things go in a different direction, and we share in the gain, but you share in the pain. Again, we'll see what happens. The future brings.
There's an old saying, remember the good times.
But and your motion included what Mr. Walter was offering as well, is to
Yes.
which make Bob a little nervous, but that's all right. You just give us your best recommendation, and we'll, you know, if we overshoot it, then we overshoot it.
It'll come out in the wash at the end of the
Well,
fiscal
it will,
year.
that's right.
We'll,
Yeah,
we'll
it
wash it
will.
all out.
Right,
so just to make sure, so the motion is a total franchise fee budget increase of $583,000 to match last fiscal year, with $30,000 of it and change going to the licensees, and the remainder going to distribution to the member agencies. Okay.
Yes, correct.
The chair will second that motion.
That's what I did.
You already seconded it. All right. Well, then with that, any no further comments?
I apologize. I have
Yes.
a revised motion from Detrick, second by Natoli.
Fine, totally.
Now, to increase the COLA 7% across the board, or just the 30,000 across the board?
I think I can provide. So the 50,514 from the Access Sacramento budget, it translates to about 2.87% over last year. So if you add it to the 5%, then that would be 7.87%.
Okay.
Well, and I believe you rounded to 7.9. I think that it is certainly reasonable to put 7.9% in the.
My motion 7.9.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. And with that.
Question. So we're dealing in dollars and we're dealing in percents. The original ask was for $15,514 and 8.2%. Your motion comes just short of the 8.2%, is that what I understand?
Well, based on Bob's calculations, 7.8.
7.8?
7.87% is what I calculated, and we rounded it to 7.9.
That covers your ask, Gary?
Yes, the number that you see reflected on my document was for ease of numbers. I wasn't sure whether this was going to affect just the franchise side. If it was to also affect the PEG side, then the number would, the percentage would shift a little bit. It was easier to put a bigger number and come down than to not ask for. It allows the staff and you folks to discuss.
Okay.
I believe that there would be effect on the PEG side as well, so that was a good comment from Mr. Martin. So with the bases, some of the bases had been moved to the PEG side, and there are still amounts on the PEG side. Typically, we apply the same adjustment to the general fund base and to the PEG base. The reason that you have base in the PEG fee is because the channel licensee so graciously had requests that move those monies over in helping during the downtimes. So really the same base adjustment should apply on the PEG side as well as on the franchise fee side.
What's the number?
There is approximately $140,000 of base on the PEG fee side. So, of course, that's the new number.
I didn't know you're an accountant, Bob.
Excuse me?
I didn't know you're an accountant as well.
Let's see. Maybe Metro Cable can play some music.
While you're doing the arithmetic, can I ask a question of the KVIE person?
Dave?
I wasn't aware about the exempt employees having to make twice what the minimum wage employees would make. How many people would fall into that category in KVIE?
Ooh. So we have 60 full-time equivalents. The number of exempt employees could be maybe a third, but they might already be paid more than double the minimum wage. It's just that if an exempt employee is at a certain amount and the minimum wage changes, they have to be paid at least double the minimum wage. Either that or they're no longer exempt or they have to get a bump up.
Right, I understand. I was just wondering how many people that would apply to, because if the minimum wage moves up to $15 an hour, that comes out to 64, 65, 70,000 a year. Do you have a lot of exempt employees making less than that?
I'd have to look back at the numbers, but I can tell you that when the federal amount came out, that was something that was pretty shocking to us, and it's going to affect our business. And that said, but Commissioner Polo mentioned something that I think is important to note, that some of the licensees get almost all of their budget from this. For KVIE, we do have a bigger budget. This is a very important part of it. It's the second biggest grant that we received throughout the year. But we can actually find other revenue streams to be able to cover some of those costs. The other licensees might not be able to do that.
Commissioner Natoli?
Yeah, I guess my question is to Harriet. So is that federal law, is it state law, or is that just under some arrangement you have that Was that part of the legislation that said that any exempt employee then gets twice what the minimum wage is?
Okay, so I'm not an expert on this.
No,
By
neither
any
am I.
stretch of the
That's why, yeah.
imagination. But I think it's federal law residuals, not state, because the state hasn't raised their minimum wages. The state is raising their minimum wage, but I believe it to be
So federal labor law says that any exempt employee makes double what the minimum wage employee makes?
Well, I think there are base amounts that you have to make in order to be an exempt employee, and I don't know exactly how they fit together.
Okay, I'd never heard that.
Almost all my clients are governmental agencies, so we're more or less exempt from state requirements. I just don't follow that much.
Never heard of it either, Don. It said exempt employees voting block.
Yeah, as I say, they may.
Hey, excuse me. I do have an answer on the PEG side if you want to hear her. So if you applied the 7.9% adjustment to the base in the PEG fund, that translates to an increase in the PEG budget of $10,510, which we have some contingency. I would recommend that we just reduce the contingency for that amount on the PEG side.
Okay.
Question, will the member agencies' distribution be reduced under this proposal?
No, it'd be increased because we're increasing the franchise fee revenue expectations. So there'd be an additional $550,000 total for distribution. Okay. So
Got a substitute motion.
Is there another substitute motion to cover the PEG base?
I thought that was going to be included in there originally, so.
Okay, so that
modifies the motion.
So that's within the scope of the substitute motion?
I'd second it then. I agree.
All right, then. With that, I have no more requests to speak. So would all members please vote?
Okay, close and display. The motion passes. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
That's right.
All right, and Karen, please call the next item.
Item number 3 is resolution number 2016-014, approving the Sixth Amendment to the license and operations agreements for the channel licensees.
Okay, as Karen just said, this is a license and operation agreements with the channel licensees, and this is in support of the budget that was just approved. So I recommend that the board adopt resolutions approving the Sixth Amendment to the license and operation agreements pertaining to the use of community programming channels.
I would move.
Second.
All right, all members please vote.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, Karen, please call the next item.
Item number 4 is the BestNet Phase 3 completion proposal from SACC.
Okay. Good afternoon. This is basically audit reports of franchise and PEG fees remitted by AT&T for the period of January 1st, 2011 through... What's that? Oh, excuse me. Apologize.
You in a hurry to get home, too?
Skipping ahead.
Well, actually, I almost gave this presentation in the budget presentation, so I could probably shorten this. I think I set up the foundation for what SCCC was requesting here in the budget. So I'll just go into the details. We are proposing that SCCC works with Comcast and Cable Commission staff over the next several months to come back to the September meeting with an agreement, an addendum to the BestNet phase, the BestNet agreement. Harriet can correct me on the title of the agreement. Some of the key points of these discussions, and also utilizing the funding support approved earlier, is that there will be a 2-year extension to the project as requested by Comcast with a completion date of June 30th, 2018. A decrease in the number of remaining sites, which actually is more than the sites that was originally contemplated in the Phase 3 agreement, but the agreement also talked about additional sites for new schools and such. So with that, SCCC had identified 63 sites, but with the discussions with Comcast is willing to reduce the remaining sites from 63 to 52. And then with this, it would be an additional year of funding this year of $600,000. Also, they will be requesting, and would be part of the agreement that you would see in September, is funding support in the amount of $400,000 for next year. And then also that the unrestricted contingency fee also be authorized to be used for the completion of these sites. And with that, this would culminate in the completion of the very successful BestNet educational resource that has been developed for schools.
I move the item.
Commissioner Natoli has a question.
Yeah, I have a question about the list, though. Two schools that are a little outside of the urban-suburban area, but nonetheless within the Elk Grove School District, both Casimas River Elementary, a fairly new facility, and Sierra Enterprise, which is just south of Jackson Highway and east of South Watt, are being proposed for deletion, and they've been on the list for the entirety of the time, I recall. I mean, they may be difficult to serve. I guess I'm curious what the give is here if they're not going to get connected to the BestNet, or maybe they are, maybe, but if I'm reading this list right, they're on the list for deletion, as are, if somebody want to ask questions about Twin Rivers and Sac City, but I'm looking at the ones in Elk Grove, so I need some background as to, in the agreement, why they get taken out. Understand you may accelerate and finish this off.
I would actually propose that Liz Rhodes from SECC address that point.
Okay, thanks. Hi, Liz.
Good afternoon. I'm Liz Rhodes, Executive Director of the Educational Cable Consortium. Those schools, those two in particular, have been on the list, as you say, a long time. They're extremely expensive. One of the things that we have always looked at is the return on investment on this and what it would cost to go through E-rate versus, the connection of BestNet. Those two sites, and by the way, we have worked with Elk Grove, and Elk Grove School District is in agreement with this, is that those are so expensive that it is much cheaper in the long run to just run them through as E-rate, and we have worked through a backdoor way to connect them technically with BestNet, but that's above my pay grade. I can't explain how that happens. I just know it happens.
But they are covered, so they're going to get access.
Yeah, absolutely, they are. And in case anyone was interested, the Sac City sites, some of them were cost prohibitive. The other is there was additional ways in which to connect them. So we looked at all of those with Comcast and with all the districts, and the districts are in complete agreement with this list. There were two sites that they were not in agreement with, and those were put in our negotiations, were put back on the list, and we just told Comcast, we can't take them off.
Okay, so we're not disadvantaging anybody. We're using different methodologies to get to this.
Right, every school.
Essentially the same result for the school, for the children in those schools.
Right, every site will be connected.
Commissioner Hernandez.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a similar, there you go. Just want to ask a similar question about what's down as Jedediah Smith, now Leah Tata Floyd Elementary. Jed Smith, it looks like it's off the list as well for deletion, so just wanted to find out in Sac City why that was. I'm assuming it's a similar reason they'll continue.
There's a variety of reasons for the city school. Some of them are the actual use of the school and how the schools have been repurposed. So in terms of having to eliminate some of the sites, they're still connected, just not with the fiber through Comcast, is what the proposal is. Every site, every school, through this process will still be connected. It's just not going to be with the dark fiber. And by the way, that is a huge give on the sites of on the side of the school district. So it wasn't kind of a thing, no big deal, we'll just get rid of them. But it was a way to try and compromise with Comcast to make this happen. These prices were 10 years old, the estimates. So where it seems like, gee, how in the world can you be, a couple $1 million over budget on the cost of doing things and adding sites over 10 years, that happens. Okay. So we're just trying to bring some closure and keep everybody happy and keep that good partnership going that we had with Comcast. And by the way, huge thank you to Bob for sitting in a meeting and bringing some calmness to the group. It's very good of that.
I'm not sure I brought calmness, but.
All right. So with that, board will receive and file a BestNet 3 completion proposal, and then I guess we have a motion from Commissioner Carr.
I'll second it.
And with that, all commissioners, please vote. Okay.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay. Karen, please read item number 5.
Item number 5 are audit reports of franchise and peg fees submitted by AT&T for the periods January 1st, 2011 through December 31st, 2013.
Okay, so I'll start with item 5 this time. This is basically receiving and filing the audit reports that regarding AT&T. As we've discussed in the past, there were findings in these audits to the tune of approximately $400,000 that are due to the commission, and ultimately this may lead to litigation, which is currently scheduled for June 12th, 2017. That would be actually a trial. That would be for trial with a settlement conference scheduled for May 1st, 2017. But with that, these audits support those findings of those amounts that are due to the commission, and I recommend that your board receive and file these audit reports.
Okay. So with that, no request to speak. The board will receive and file the audit reports. Next item, please.
Item number 6 is the annual election of the chair and vice chair for the commission board.
So with this item, we have provided the past history of chairs, but as has been the practice at the past several meetings, as would turn this over to the chair to help figure out who the chair and the vice chair will be for next year.
Commissioner, Supervisor Natoli.
Yeah. Well, again, unless there's somebody who has a burning desire to jump into the chair seat, and I think Commissioner Gonzalez is certainly in the queue, and I know that Commissioner Walter will be with us through the end of the calendar year, and with that in mind, unless there was a real desire to have a shake-up in rotation, I would propose we keep the same chair and vice chair, at least, I mean, for the rest of the year, and I think Commissioner Gonzalez needs to get ready because Ted will be partying, I guess, in January, is that right?
Unless something happens.
Yeah, unless somebody else appoints.
Unless Supervisor McGlashan deposes whoever wins the election.
Okay, all right. But again, I would be willing to hear other comments, but that'd be my thoughts to maintain the continuity.
Commissioner Gonzalez?
It's been my pleasure to serve as vice chair, and unless anyone else would like to serve, I'd be happy to continue to serve as vice chair.
And the chair has no problem continuing to serve as the chair, so.
Okay. I'd make the motion to approve a slate officers, or vice chair and chair for the next year as Chair Walter and Vice Chair Gonzalez.
Second.
Okay. Please vote.
Mr. Gonzalez, can you vote, please? Oh, there you go. Ready, sorry. Lisa and Howard, please vote.
I voted.
You did? Okay. Can we try that again? Because I'm showing 2 of them. Okay, let's close that. Then I'm going to enable it again.
Okay.
Wait. Okay, now please vote.
Irregularities in the voting machines.
There we go. Thank you. Motion passes.
Great. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Hey,
Yes.
just keep winning. No, I have a 757 with my name on the side. Next item, please.
Item number 7 is a report from our Executive Director, Bob Davison.
I'll keep this brief. First, I want to introduce to you the newest staff person for Metro Cable. The technical assistant position, which we discussed at previous meetings, and the last person that occupied that position moved on to bigger, brighter things. So with that, Metro Cable staff has gone through the process and has hired a new technical assistant, and that is Kevin Benyon, and here he is. First of all, can you confirm that I pronounced your name right? Can you
Kevin Benyon, yes.
Benyon? That was pretty close. I don't know if you want to take a minute and just briefly say your background.
So I started over at Columbus River College doing some of their televised class on the SEC channel, 16, 17. About 2.5 years ago, I started over at Access Sacramento as a production assistant. About 2 years ago, I started here as a production assistant, and now moving up to technical assistant.
So this is a very important position. The last technical assistant, Joe, many of you know, who was just able to do everything, and we have high hopes for Kevin as well. So welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Welcome.
Congratulations, Kevin.
This time you're in front of the camera, behind it though, so typically you'll be
I'm behind the camera.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Kevin. And I'm just going to point out that the commencement of the commission audits, not the cable company audits, but the audit of the commission, we do it annually, has just begun, and we're going to be auditing fiscal years 13-14 and 14-15, and so that will be the subject of a not too distant board meeting. And also for the remainder of the calendar year, based upon past policy where we changed to 4 meetings per year, we should have a meeting the first Thursday in September and the first Thursday in December. And that should do it for the rest of the calendar year.
Great.
And that's all I had on general administration report.
Okay, next item.
Item number 8, reports from state franchisees. I don't think there are any present.
They are not. I have no request to speak, so next item, please.
Okay, the next item is reports from our channel licensees.
All right, and just in the order I've got them, go with start Gary first.
I've already spent more than my share of time at the microphone, so I'll just say thank you very much for the support today and for the consideration of a process moving forward into the next year of what is a minimum wage kind of inconsistency for us. So thank you very much in supporting our staff and the ability to move forward. And I will only say that Kevin Benyon undoubtedly is now making above minimum wage. Because when he was with us, it was probably pretty darn close to that. Also, thanks to Karen and to Bob on the budget process. They have worked diligently with me in trying to help me understand how to do this better, to make it easier for them. And I think maybe next year it will be a little smoother in terms of my ability to process documents over to them. I do want to say thank you also for the past support. There's a short video that will show you the high-definition truck that you have purchased for us. I will tell you that it came up here for 4 days for a quick run. It has gone back down to Hollywood for some final tweaks, but essentially they are working toward the elegant solution on the few things that are still remaining. But there's a short video, about 3 minutes, and I'll get out of the way after that. For as difficult as it is to do television in a TV studio in a building, it's just as complicated to do that in a remote production vehicle like this one. But we are so delighted to be able to invite you into the control room of the new HDTV Access Sacramento remote truck. I'm standing at the technical director's position for the person who would operate the video switcher, be able to move from camera 1 to camera 2, much the same way that you would do it in a regular TV studio, moving from the camera, the shot of a quarterback, to the shot of the sidelines in creating a television production. But the video switcher is just part of that, and it's also nice that it's all high definition. As you look at the monitors that are up above, you can see that those monitors are also in high definition. This is what's called a multi-viewer, and that very large HD TV screen is actually showing us as many as 16 images at any one time. Coming down the control panel here, past the switcher, you get to where the director sits, the person who says, "Ready camera 1, take camera 1." And that person sits here. They have an intercom system that allows them to talk to up to 4 different hardwired channels at a time. Many times it's cameras on one of those channels and engineers on another. There's also 2 audio channels that are remote broadcast for transmitted, so that you could talk to field talent or be able to talk to engineers out in the field. And then here in the sunlight of this corner is where the instant replay machine is. This is a NewTek 3-play that allows us to run slow motion and other instant replay kinds of things for sports. But here in the control room, it is air-conditioned, and it's a beautiful place to be for up to 6 or 7 people at any one time in this very small space. But over on this side, we have in the far right the character generator, the device that puts text on the screen. And the 2 people here are getting ready for a broadcast coming up when we broadcast at 6 o'clock for A Place Called Sacramento and the 17th annual launch of that process. Then there's some engineering functions. The intercom controls are next. And then here where you see the slots and the kind of play record device is where we have the Blackmagic hyperdecks that record standard definition and high definition. Also allow us to route anything else that someone might bring to us off a flash drive or a DVD and put it into our channels. And then on the far left is the control systems for the camera controls so that they are exposed properly, have the right color. Engineer Richard Langley sitting there, he's going to give us a wave. And it's of course very exciting for us to have this high definition vehicle. We've moved now into a completely different room. Behind this wall is where I was just standing in the video area, and now we've come over into the audio area, which is very much like a closet. But the fact is that the audio operator can now see all of the different operations and now has this beautiful 28-input audio board that is all ready to go for doing concerts and other major events in Sacramento County. And to give you an idea that it is actually working, this is the microphone pot that is on right now, and it's set for my voice. But if I keep talking and Jim brings that down, you can't hear it anymore because he's brought it down and my voice went away. So we are a live broadcast, essentially taking this live microphone in the audio board. And it is kind of cool because the board is automated in a variety of ways to do things that are really kind of fun. And of course my microphone I think is still going off and all of that, but it is automated and can be programmed to do all of the things that you need to in a full-on HD TV truck. And the beautiful part about all of this is that the broadcast that you're seeing right now is coming out of this vehicle. And Access Sacramento couldn't be more proud to have this new treat for Sacramento County viewers.
Great.
Thank you. Great. I can't say anything more than that. Just
Great.
thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah.
Next up, Dave Lowe.
Well, Commissioner Natoli had to leave, but I did want to report back that's a California law, and as you know, most California law trumps federal law when it comes to employment, but you can find it out on the interwebs. That was a joke. All right, thank you for your continued support of KVIE. Your grants have strengthened Sacramento County by boosting our ability to deliver programs that inspire residents to connect with their communities. For us, it's all about building social capital, because we know that communities that have high social capital are strong. They're the ones that see more citizen involvement through democracy. They have better child welfare and education, safety, economic development, and public and individual health. In our video, you're going to see how together we helped build more social capital in Sacramento County and beyond. And because of your support, KVIE is going to do even more as we all move forward together. Please roll the video. Oops. People in the back are probably yelling at each other. There we go. That's how TV works.
I always think of it this way. You're not born alone, so you shouldn't die alone.
Fear has never come into the equation for me. Inevitably, what's going to happen is going to happen. It's just how we put it into perspective.
They each lived about 2.5 hours long. They each were born alive with beating hearts and moving limbs, and I held them in my arms and they snuggled up against me.
Katie, what would you say about organ donation?
It's life-saving. At the same time, it continues life.
Beyond the art's somewhat intangible, inherent value to society, and beyond their value as the signature of who we are, The arts help the state succeed through economic growth, education, tourism, health, and public safety.
This don't work, that don't work, you know. It just makes you want to run out on a freeway.
You have to want to be well before you can be well. You have to want to focus on the good things instead of just focusing on the problems.
I want to help you because I don't want you out here dying because you're sick.
Today I feel empowered. I feel hopeful. I let people love me and care about me today.
These babies are keeping me alive here so they can get hats and booties. I love children. I never had any. So these are my babies.
Thanks, Dave. Next up, Ron Herman.
Thank you. Ron Herman, Program Coordinator for Sacramento Faith TV. John Fish and our station manager couldn't make it today, but they asked me to come in. And even though we don't get financial support from the commission, your support in helping us stay on the air and allowing us to have a PEG station here is great for the community for bringing faith-based programming. In the last 3 years that we've been here for many years, but the last 3 years we've been upping our game in the Sacramento area. We've had our billboards, if we can bring that show up here on the screen. We've been promoting the station, building our new brand. We see these around Sacramento twice a year. We put these up on the billboards and then the bus stations. Also, we've got some media coming out the next year coming up as well. We've been profitable, and we brought in about 20% more of our local faith teams programming preachers and ministers to Sacramento. And I'd like to leave you with today is a little promotional video that we had that runs on our station right now. Thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thank you, Ron. We have a video running?
We have a video?
There we go.
Works in the fast-paced world of Sacramento.
Thank you, Ron. And Liz.
Liz Rhodes, last, right? Yes. But not least. Thank you very much for your support of BestNet. It has been a remarkable network. We are so very fortunate in Sacramento. And I just want you to know that the school districts and Comcast has been, behind this. Issues at higher levels with Comcast, but the local people have been absolutely tremendous in terms of trying to work this through with them. And the schools have been very, very supportive. And I think it's one of the few networks that has been used since day one. And it really is a very valuable and also reliable network. Made a big difference in the schools. Biggest thing I want to thank you for today, though, is your support of the SIVA Labs. And I have a real short video from our award night. We shortened the opening to capture some of the comments from the students. And I think it's probably one of the most powerful things that I have seen in a long time, these students and what they're learning and how they are expressing their voices and how they are continuing in their education by wanting to come to school because they have the ability to work together to create these programs, have them air on the cable channels, put them on YouTube, put them on websites. So if we can roll that tape and you can see just a little bit of what your funding has done for our kids.
I think this program has really helped me a lot. It's helped me manage work and school, and it's been really hard, but I think throughout this whole process I've become a more complete person because of all the work that I have to do.
The best part of school is definitely coming here, being able to sit down with the group, come up with an idea, write it out, film it, edit it, work together and see the final product and see how it compares to everyone else's ideas and just see how different we are.
I think video is a great tool for students and they can use it to have a voice and be heard.
Ready, set, go!
Let's give it a shot.
You should always be calm, and you need a little patience because it does take some patience.
Because I know once you have an idea, you want to bust it out as quick as you can, but if you wanted to make it the best it absolutely can be, you have to take time with it, and you got to, you got to saute it.
Why are you going to retire?
Look at my eyes. Look at the bags under my eyes.
Everyone knows how to speak, how to voice their thoughts. We just tell them not to. So a video, it's very easy to understand, and you can depict what's going on using hand motions, animations, whatever you really want. And it's really easy to get a point across when the person is seeing that happen in real life.
I think a good video is something that affects your life and it changes how you do certain things.
Back.
Welcome to the Seavers!
It's over 400 entries this year at our award night. We had some dignitaries handing out awards. Steve Dietrich was wonderful with the students. We had over 1,000 parents, teachers, and students attend this year. And it's the culmination of the work that the teachers and students have done over the years, and as we've implemented these facilities. The next step, and this is what I want to leave you with, is these students have amazing skills. And you can hear in their voice, they know the impact that they make. They know the impact of the video, and that's where we want to go. So the next step is taking it outside of the schools and going into the communities. And we've worked with some of you on getting them out there. We did a wonderful one with the water ski championships for the incredible watching those students work with those people. So my plea to you is thank you very much for the funding, but if you could also help us when there are things in your district that are noteworthy, that you would like to have students come and capture the event, mini documentaries, please let us know. We're working with several of you on that, and we'd like to expand it because we want the students to get that next step and understand really the significance and the real importance and what this does, not only their lives, but how it will affect other lives within our community, and embrace all of the technologies that we've been able to pull together through your support and through all of the the work that has been over the last 30 years. So thank you very much.
Liz, I want to recognize you for how humble you are. I was at the SIVA Awards. She puts the whole thing together, and she is stealth. You don't even know she's there. She has no recognition that she takes when she does this, and it's all about the kids, and they're the foundation of our future. And what you're able to do across the region, and the connection I've been able to make with you in Elk Grove is just phenomenal. And to see these films that came in at the SIVA, the categories they have, they start with kindergarten. So they have kindergartners involved with videos all the way up through high school, and some of the stuff is just unbelievable that they're able to put together with some of them totally animated. And I can't thank you enough for the efforts that you put in, and the connection, again, pretty special to me with some of the different events that I've been involved in, that we've been able to bring kids from Franklin and from the middle schools, the teachers in Elk Grove, as well as across the region, to give their time to devote to these kids way above and beyond their salaries. And so, congrats.
Thank you for your comments, but it truly is a labor of love, and we are so blessed in this community to have such tremendous support from people like you, to the teachers, to the parents, and the more we can pull that together and make more opportunities available, we're there 100%. So thank you. And
the one video that you mentioned from the Disabled Worlds that was held in Elk Grove received a national award. So they took first place in a national category. So we're actually going to be recognizing them at City Council.
Awesome. Great. All right. Well, that's all I have for item number 9. So the next item, Karen?
Item number 10 is to receive comments from the general public.
And I have no requests. So with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you.